Ethan Cole woke slowly, the sunlight slipping past the curtains and falling across the floor in golden stripes. For a moment, he thought it was an ordinary morning. The alarm hadn't gone off and the apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. He stretched and turned to reach for his phone on the nightstand. But then he froze. There was someone in his bed. Not just someone he had never seen before in his life. She was lying on her side, facing him, her hands tucked neatly under her cheek, as if she had been sleeping there for years. Her skin shimmered faintly, a pale shade that seemed almost luminous in the morning light, and her hair fell like liquid silver across the pillow. Ethan blinked, convinced he was dreaming. Hello," he said cautiously. His voice sounded weird in the quiet room. The woman stirred slightly and opened her eyes. They were large and deep, colored like molten gold, and they studied him with a calm certainty that made him shiver. Then she smiled, a small, polite smile that didn't belong to anyone human. "Good morning, Ethan," she said in perfect, soft English. "I trust you slept well. It is our custom to begin life together immediately upon arrival. You are aware, yes. But the bond is valid. You and I are partners now. You should get up. Breakfast is ready." He couldn't recognize most of it, but it smelled pleasant. I can't eat that," he said slowly. I can't even," he trailed off, staring at her. "Why are you in my apartment, my bed?" "Because the coalition has observed your qualities and selected you as a suitable partner. There is no mistake. You're not human. And where you are meant to be is awake, present, and aware of our bond." And why did he feel something, a strange mix of fear and awe when she looked at him? He decided the first step was to stand up. "Okay," he said cautiously. Let's step back a bit. You can't just, I don't know anything about this." "You may eat or not, but nourishment is important, Ethan. We begin with the morning." He swallowed, still trembling, and looked at her. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's say I accept that you're here, but I don't accept that we're bonded or married or whatever. But for now, cooperation is necessary. Empathy, calm under stress, moral reasoning, patience. You were observed over years. Your life, though ordinary, has demonstrated suitability for interspecies cooperation. That is why you were selected. Humanity's strength is in small, consistent acts. It is in care and honesty and kindness. You are exemplary." She simply was, and in a strange way that made the world feel different. Before he could speak again, his phone buzzed. He picked it up and froze. Messages from friends, coworkers, even local news alerts. Alien contacts increasing. Sarinian delegation observed humans. Unexpected human-alien interaction. Nothing mentioned him directly, but the reports made his heart pound. This was not a hallucination. Lurie was real, and somehow he was caught in the middle. He looked back at her. "So what now?" "And together, we will demonstrate the strength of human qualities to my people." Respect was something humans had that aliens often misunderstood. Respect was something he had, and apparently it mattered more than he had realized. The morning passed in a strange blur. Lurie made food, arranged his apartment, and even tidied his cluttered desk. She spoke little, but when she did, it was clear, calm, and observant. Ethan noticed things he had never considered. How she folded laundry, how she balanced flavors in her cooking, how her presence seemed to command quiet attention without saying a word. By afternoon, he found himself teaching her about human routines. Coffee machines, keys, television remotes, elevators. She absorbed everything with curiosity and politeness. She asked questions, not out of suspicion but interest. And somehow in the middle of all this, Ethan began to feel protective. Strange, unexpected, and confusing. Evenings were quieter. Ethan sat on the couch while Lurie prepared a small dinner. He watched her, thinking about the news reports, about the coalition, about how strange and impossible today had been. And yet she didn't threaten him. She didn't manipulate him. She didn't make demands beyond basic cooperation. She simply existed, a mirror to humanity's potential for calm, patience, and understanding. As night fell, Ethan found himself exhausted but strangely alert. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring or what the coalition truly wanted from him. He didn't know whether he would ever be able to return to a normal life. But for the first time in a long while, he felt that maybe humanity could matter. Maybe humans weren't just another species on a small blue planet. And somehow, in the quiet of his apartment, he realized that Lurie's presence, impossible, alien, and bewildering, had already changed him. He didn't know whether to be afraid or curious or grateful, perhaps all three. But he knew one thing: the world had shifted and there was no turning back. and Lurie, watching him with golden eyes, simply nodded. Tomorrow would be the real beginning. Ethan woke early again, though sleep had been restless. His mind kept returning to the events of the previous day, Lurie appearing in his bed, speaking of bonds and claiming him as her partner. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at her. She was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, her silver hair catching the morning light. She seemed calm, almost serene, as if nothing unusual had happened. "Good morning, Ethan," she said softly. "Did you sleep well?" There was a kind of quiet discipline in her actions that Ethan found both strange and compelling. "Lurie," he began, "I need to understand something. You said we are bonded, but what does that actually mean? And why me?" "You were observed because your qualities are rare among humans. You were chosen because you demonstrate qualities that are difficult to find in your species: patience, kindness, emotional balance." But Lurie spoke with such certainty, such absolute calm, that he could not dismiss her words. "So, I'm some kind of test?" he asked, trying to hide his disbelief. "In a way," Lurie said, "but not a test of strength or intelligence, a test of humanity's emotional capability. Your actions will demonstrate to my people what humans are truly capable of." "So all this, you moving in, making breakfast, organizing my apartment, it's some kind of social experiment. Or if I freak out?" He didn't understand this alien woman or her customs, but there was something about the calm certainty in her voice that made him want to try, even if only to prove to himself that he could handle this bizarre situation. Breakfast passed in silence, broken only by the occasional question from Lurie about mundane human life: coffee, newspapers, elevators. She listened intently, absorbing every detail. Ethan found himself explaining things he had never thought about explaining before: why people queue at stores, why humans celebrate birthdays, why pets are considered family. It felt strange, almost absurd, but also grounding. Lurie's curiosity made him see his own world differently, in a way that was both familiar and new. After breakfast, Lurie suggested a walk. "It is important for you to see the world as I observe it," she said, "to demonstrate cooperation in public and to show the coalition how humans interact." He nodded reluctantly. They left the apartment, stepping into the bright morning. People passed by, some staring, some whispering. Ethan felt self-conscious, but Lurie walked calmly, her posture straight and unafraid. She smiled at a few passers-by, greeting them in perfect English, though her voice had a melodic quality that drew attention. Ethan noticed something surprising. The reactions of people around them varied. Some were hostile, muttering insults, while others were curious or admiring. Lurie did not react to any hostility. She simply observed and remained polite. Her presence seemed to absorb tension rather than create it. As they walked, she asked Ethan about human emotions: fear, love, anger, joy. He tried to explain, often stumbling over words, realizing that some feelings were hard to describe. Lurie listened, asking clarifying questions, never judging, always curious. "Humans are capable of both cruelty and kindness," Ethan said finally as they reached a small park. "But I think what matters is the choices we make. Even if someone is angry or scared, we can still choose to act with decency." They spent the afternoon observing human interactions. Lurie asked questions about disputes, social etiquette, and even humor. Ethan explained jokes, sarcasm, and irony, watching as she tried to replicate a few simple jokes with her melodic voice. People nearby laughed or looked confused. Ethan couldn't tell which, but Lurie seemed pleased. Eventually, they returned to his apartment. Ethan was exhausted, his mind buzzing with everything that had happened. Lurie prepared a light dinner, and again he was amazed at the flavors and balance of her cooking. As they sat eating, Lurie spoke softly. "I am learning much from you, Ethan, not only about your species, but about human patience, compassion, and resilience. Your actions today have been exemplary. It shows the coalition that humans are worthy of trust." He didn't fully understand it, but it was comforting. Lurie's presence, though alien and strange, seemed to encourage him to see the best in himself. After dinner, they settled on the couch. Lurie observed quietly as Ethan scrolled through the news, showing him reports of other human-alien interactions, political debates, and scientific breakthroughs. She asked questions about ethics, fairness, and decision-making. Ethan realized that her questions were not just curiosity, they were assessments. Each answer he gave contributed to the coalition's understanding of humanity. Hours passed. Night fell, and the city outside grew quiet. Ethan felt a deep exhaustion, but also a strange clarity. Lurie had not imposed herself on him. She had not demanded obedience or affection. Instead, she had observed, asked, and guided gently, and in doing so, she had helped him see something he had never realized, the quiet strength of humanity. Finally, Ethan stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "I don't know what the coalition expects," he said quietly, "or what will happen next." For the first time, he realized that being human, ordinary, flawed, and persistent could matter on a scale he had never imagined. Lurie sat beside him, silent but attentive. Ethan felt no fear, no threat, only a sense of partnership that was strange but genuine. He didn't have all the answers, and he didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing. He could rise to the challenge, whatever it might be, and perhaps teach even an alien what humanity was truly capable of. And in that quiet moment, with the city lights flickering below and the alien woman sitting beside him, Ethan understood the first lesson of bonding. It was not about control or fear or obligation. It was about trust. And trust, once given, could become stronger than any technology, any weapon, any rule. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, he allowed himself a small measure of hope and a small measure of pride. He had begun to show the strength of humanity in the simplest ways, and for that, he felt remarkable. And Lurie, watching him, seemed to acknowledge it silently. Ethan awoke to a city humming with energy. The morning sun streamed through his curtains, casting long lines of light across the floor. He lay in bed for a moment, letting his thoughts settle. Lurie was already awake, moving quietly around the apartment. She was arranging the small kitchen counter, as if every object had a purpose beyond its normal function. "Good morning, Ethan," she said softly, turning toward him with her usual calm expression. "You slept well." He had learned to expect the unexpected when Lurie was around, and yet he could not get used to the sense of peace her presence brought. It was strange, comforting, and slightly unnerving at the same time. Lurie set a tray of breakfast on the table. Ethan noticed the same care in preparation as before, the balance of flavors, the alignment of utensils, the thoughtfulness of presentation. It was meticulous, almost ceremonial, but it made him feel seen. "You are preparing for an important day," he said. "I am observing," she corrected gently. "And assisting. Today the coalition observers will be present. They wish to see how you act in public under observation." He swallowed hard. "Observers here in the city." He tried to steady himself, taking a deep breath. Lurie's calm demeanor helped, though it did not eliminate the anxiety that churned inside him. When they left the apartment, the streets of the city seemed ordinary, yet everything felt heightened. People glanced at them, some staring openly, others whispering to friends. Lurie walked beside him with her usual grace, not touching him, not demanding attention, but drawing it anyway. Ethan realized she had a presence that made people uneasy, but not afraid. Respectful curiosity, perhaps, but curiosity nonetheless. They arrived at a small park where children played and joggers passed by. Lurie's golden eyes scanned everything, noting details Ethan had never noticed. The expressions of people, the small gestures, the tiny decisions that made each human unique. Ethan understood now that every move he made mattered not just to Lurie, but to observers who judged humanity by his behavior. "Ethan," she said softly, "you must remain patient. Observe reactions, respond truthfully, and show kindness when it is difficult. That is what matters most." Their bodies were taller, more angular, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the sun. Their eyes, large and dark, observed him without expression. They did not speak at first, simply standing to watch. Lurie inclined her head slightly. "They are the coalition observers. They will remain quiet unless they need clarification." His instinct was to act nervously, to say something foolish, to stumble. He took a deep breath and reminded himself of her words: patience, honesty, integrity. The observers began to take notes, or so it seemed. Their eyes moved from Ethan to Lurie, recording subtle interactions. The tilt of a head, a gesture of the hand, a smile shared between them. Ethan realized that the simplest actions, the smallest decisions, could be judged as a reflection of humanity's capability. He tried to relax, focusing on ordinary human behavior. When a child ran past and tripped, he instinctively reached out to help. Lurie mirrored his movements, offering support and gentle reassurance. The observers' attention seemed to sharpen, though they remained silent. Later, a woman in the park began shouting at a dog that had wandered too close to her picnic. Ethan felt a surge of frustration, but he remembered Lurie's advice. He approached calmly, speaking politely to both the woman and the dog owner. Lurie followed, assisting silently, her actions precise and measured. The situation resolved without conflict. Ethan realized the coalition was watching how he managed tension, not just how he acted when life was easy. As the day continued, more interactions unfolded. A street vendor tried to cheat a tourist, and Ethan calmly intervened, explaining the error without anger. Lurie supported him subtly, her presence reinforcing fairness. Observers moved closer, their attention meticulous, their silent evaluation almost palpable. Ethan began to understand the weight of the day. Each choice, each word, each gesture was not just a personal action. It was a demonstration of humanity's ability to act ethically and with restraint. He felt the pressure, but also a strange sense of purpose. He was no longer just a man in a city. He was a representative of his species. By late afternoon, they returned to the apartment. Ethan's mind was exhausted, but also clear. He had faced scrutiny, challenges, and subtle provocation, yet he had acted with honesty, patience, and fairness. Lurie's presence had been a stabilizing force, guiding him without dictating, observing without judgment. "You have done well today," Lurie said softly as they entered the apartment. "The observers are impressed. You demonstrated qualities that are rare even among mature humans: patience, empathy, and moral clarity. Your species has potential, Ethan. It requires courage, consistency, and awareness. You have shown all three. That is why you were selected." His patience, his fairness, his willingness to act ethically under scrutiny, these were the qualities that mattered. As evening fell, Lurie suggested they review the day. They sat together, and she asked questions about his choices, his thoughts, and his feelings. Ethan answered honestly, discussing moments of frustration, hesitation, and triumph. Lurie listened intently, making occasional notes in her own language, which glimmered faintly in the fading light. "You understand your actions are being observed," she said. "Every choice reflects not just on you, but on your species. You carried this responsibility well." "I tried to act like what I thought was right." It was the knowledge that he had acted with integrity and that his actions, small as they were, mattered. Night fell fully over the city. Ethan and Lurie sat by the window, watching the lights flicker across the streets below. The air was calm, filled with the distant hum of life. Ethan realized that this day, though strange and exhausting, had changed him. He had glimpsed a purpose beyond himself, beyond ordinary life, and it was grounded in something simple: the strength of humanity. "You will continue to be observed," Lurie said quietly, "but remember that today you proved what humans are capable of. Compassion, patience, integrity, these are your weapons, and they are powerful." He had faced scrutiny, challenge, and silent judgment, and he had not failed. He had shown humanity not as a theory, but as a living, breathing force. And Lurie, sitting beside him, radiated calm and trust. He realized that her presence had not only guided him, it had also reflected back the best parts of himself. He felt the first genuine connection in this strange, alien-influenced chapter of his life. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new tests, new observers, and new challenges. But tonight, he allowed himself a small measure of pride, a quiet acknowledgement that even ordinary humans could shine when the moment required it. And in that quiet, shared understanding, he felt something rare and profound: the sense that humanity, in its simplest and most honest form, could truly matter. The next morning, Ethan awoke to the faint hum of the city below. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes, and saw Lurie standing by the window. She gazed out at the streets with a calm focus that made him wonder what she was thinking. "Good morning," he said, voice rough from sleep. "Good morning, Ethan," she replied softly. "Today will be important. The Coalition has requested a formal review of your interactions. They wish to evaluate whether humans are capable of sustained cooperation, ethical reasoning, and emotional maturity. Your actions will influence how they perceive humanity as a species." The stakes felt higher, the observers more exacting. "Who will be there?" he asked. "Several delegates from different worlds," Lurie said. "They are skilled in analysis and judgment. Some may test you directly, others will observe indirectly. You must remain calm and true to your values." He felt the weight of the responsibility. His choices today could shape the Coalition's opinion of Earth. They left the apartment and made their way to a large open square in the city center. Citizens passed by, curious glances following them. Ethan noticed security personnel in the distance, not interfering but monitoring. Lurie walked beside him, calm and composed, a pillar of certainty amidst the strange attention. A sleek, luminescent vehicle approached, landing silently on the square. Three figures emerged, tall, angular, and glowing faintly. Their expressions were neutral, yet Ethan felt the weight of their scrutiny immediately. These were the Coalition delegates. "Ethan Cole," one of them said, voice resonant and commanding. "You have been observed. Today, your actions will be evaluated for humanity's suitability. You understand the process. You will be tested in ways that require judgment and empathy. Observe, respond, and demonstrate restraint." A group of humans in the square began arguing loudly over a small misunderstanding. Voices rose, tempers flared, and tension thickened the air. Ethan felt the instinct to avoid it, to walk away, but he remembered the coalition's expectations. He stepped forward calmly. "Excuse me," he said, raising his hands. "Let's take a moment to understand each other." "Can we talk?" He had relied on dialogue, fairness, and patience, the qualities Lurie and the coalition valued. The next challenge was subtler. A street vendor tried to cheat a tourist by overcharging for an item. Ethan noticed immediately. He could have ignored it, walked away, but he knew that every decision mattered. He approached the vendor calmly. "I think there may be a mistake in the charge," he said politely. "Perhaps we can correct it." Again, Ethan realized the coalition was observing not just action, but attitude. He had chosen integrity over convenience, honesty over indifference. By midday, the evaluation became more personal. A delegate approached Ethan directly. "Human, explain your values. How do you decide right from wrong? How do you act when confronted with fear, anger, or confusion?" I try to think about the people affected by my choices. I try to act in ways that are fair, honest, and compassionate. I don't always succeed, but I try. And I try to stay calm, even when others around me are not. I don't ignore them or blame others. I take responsibility. That's what I think makes humans capable of being trusted. A small child ran into the square, crying after losing a toy. Ethan instinctively moved to comfort the child, offering help and reassurance. Lurie knelt beside him, supporting the interaction with calm gestures and gentle encouragement. The coalition observers watched intently, noting the subtle balance of empathy, patience, and guidance. Ethan realized that the simplest human actions, helping others, resolving conflict, being honest, were being evaluated as proof of his species' worthiness. As the day drew to a close, Ethan and Lurie returned to the apartment. The delegates remained at a distance, silently observing, yet Ethan felt a change in the air. There was no threat, no hostility. There was only acknowledgement, a quiet recognition that he had met the expectations, demonstrated humanity's potential, and shown that cooperation, patience, and moral clarity were real strengths. "You have performed admirably," Lurie said softly as they sat together. "The coalition will take note of your actions. You demonstrated qualities that are rare even among mature humans: empathy, integrity, and calm under observation. You have proven humanity's potential. Today, you demonstrated it clearly." The coalition was not only observing his actions, they were learning from his decisions, understanding human thought, and assessing the emotional depth of his species. As night fell, Ethan looked out at the city. He felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. He had faced scrutiny, tests, and subtle challenges, and he had succeeded. Not through power or intelligence or force, but through simple human qualities: patience, honesty, compassion, and moral courage. Lurie sat beside him, silent and calm. Her presence reminded him that he was not alone, that the bond between them, though unusual and unexpected, was a source of support and guidance. He realized that her role was not to control him, but to reflect back the best of humanity, to amplify qualities that might otherwise go unnoticed. "You will face more challenges," Lurie said quietly. "But remember today, you showed that humans are capable of integrity, empathy, and restraint. That is a rare and powerful combination." He had been ordinary once, unnoticed and unremarkable. Now he understood that ordinary humans could shine in extraordinary ways. His small acts, his choices, and his patience had all contributed to a greater purpose, demonstrating humanity's strength to the galaxy. As they prepared for bed, Ethan felt a strange calm. The future was uncertain, the coalition's expectations high and challenges ahead. But for the first time, he believed in his ability to meet them. He had discovered a strength within himself, a quiet, steady power grounded in the best of human nature. Lurie smiled, watching him with golden eyes that seemed to see into his very soul. Ethan realized that the bond between them, though strange and unasked for at first, had grown into something meaningful. It was not love, not yet, but trust, a trust that would guide him through the trials to come. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new challenges. Tests, decisions, and scrutiny would continue. But tonight, he allowed himself a quiet pride. Humanity had proven itself once again, not through conquest or weapons, but through empathy, honesty, and patience. And in that quiet moment with Lurie beside him, Ethan understood that the true power of his species lay not in what they could destroy, but in what they could build, protect, and nurture. For the first time, he felt ready for whatever the galaxy would ask of him. The morning sun rose slowly over the city, casting long shadows across the streets and buildings. Ethan awoke with a sense of anticipation he had never felt before. Today would be different. He could feel it. The Coalition had scheduled a final review, a decisive moment that could shape humanity's place among the stars. Lurie was already awake, standing by the window, her silver hair catching the light like a river of stars. She looked calm, almost serene, yet there was a quiet intensity in her eyes. Ethan knew that today's events would not only test him, but determine the fate of his species in the eyes of the alien Coalition. "Good morning, Ethan," she said softly. "Are you ready?" "I think so. I don't know what they expect, but I'm ready to do my best." He had always lived an ordinary life, unnoticed and unremarkable. Now every step, every gesture, every word mattered not only to himself, but to all of humanity. The assembly hall was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It was vast, luminous, and filled with delegates from countless worlds. Their forms varied, some human-like, some abstract, some completely unlike anything he could imagine. All eyes were on him as he entered with Lurie. The air hummed with anticipation, curiosity, and a quiet tension. One of the delegates, taller than the rest with translucent, crystalline skin, stepped forward. "Ethan Cole," it said, its voice resonating through the hall. "You have been observed for several days. Your actions, choices, and behavior have been evaluated. Today, you will answer one question. Is humanity worthy of joining the Coalition?" He stepped forward. I don't know if I'm the right person to speak for all humans," he began, voice steady despite his nerves. "But I can say this, humans are capable of kindness, empathy, and courage. We make mistakes, we argue, we fail sometimes. But when it matters, we try, we care about each other, we take responsibility, we can act with fairness even when it is hard. That is who we are. That is what makes us worthy. And when we face challenges, when we are tested, we do not always choose the easy path. We choose what is right. That is our strength. That is humanity's strength." One of the delegates, a tall figure with a translucent, ripple-like body, spoke. "Your words reflect integrity, yet actions, not words, are what matter. How can we be certain that your species embodies these qualities consistently?" Then he began to recount his experiences over the past days, helping strangers resolve conflicts, preventing injustice, showing patience with those who were difficult, guiding others with empathy. He spoke honestly, without exaggeration or embellishment, of both his successes and his mistakes, of the small choices that reflected humanity's character. The assembly hall was silent as he spoke. Delegates leaned forward, taking notes, observing the subtle cues of his behavior: tone, posture, eye contact, sincerity. Lurie watched him silently, a quiet anchor in the sea of alien scrutiny. When he finished, Ethan felt drained but resolute. He had spoken truthfully, shown humanity through his actions, and revealed what it meant to be human in the simplest and most honest way. The delegates consulted among themselves, their discussion unintelligible to Ethan. Lurie remained by his side, her presence unwavering. Finally, the tall crystalline figure addressed him again. "Ethan Cole," it said, "your actions and words have demonstrated qualities that are rare and valuable. You have shown empathy, integrity, and patience under scrutiny. You have acted without coercion, without deceit, without fear controlling your choices. Your species possesses the potential for cooperation, understanding, and moral clarity. Humanity is worthy of inclusion in the Coalition." He realized that the recognition was not just for him, it was for all humans and for the potential he had represented. Yet the final decision required one more step. Lurie turned to the delegates and spoke in her melodic language. Ethan could not understand the words, but the tone was firm, deliberate, and respectful. A murmur ran through the hall, and then a delegate translated. "Lurie has requested that humanity be formally accepted into the Coalition, based on the actions and guidance of your representative. She cites the strength, integrity, and potential of your species as sufficient for inclusion. The Coalition will honor this request." Delegates nodded, some approaching to shake his hand, or the closest equivalent for their species. Ethan felt overwhelmed, amazed, and profoundly proud. He turned to Lurie. You requested this for us, for humanity?" he asked, astonished. "I did," she said simply. "You showed the qualities of your species through your actions. It is only fair that humans have the opportunity to join the Coalition." They will judge based on merit, not fear or preconception. The remainder of the day passed in a blur of introductions, briefings, and formalities. Humans would now be considered part of an interstellar network with opportunities for knowledge exchange, cultural growth, and peaceful cooperation. Ethan could hardly believe it. His ordinary life, his patience, empathy, and small acts of integrity had helped humanity earn a place among the stars. As night fell, Ethan and Lurie returned to the apartment. The city lights glittered below and a quiet peace settled over them. Ethan sank onto the couch, exhausted but exhilarated. "You did it," Lurie said softly, sitting beside him. "Not only for yourself, but for your species. Today, humans have been recognized for what they truly are. You guided me but never forced me. You made me see what I was capable of." Her presence had been more than guidance. It had been a mirror, reflecting the qualities he had never fully acknowledged in himself. Through her, he had discovered patience, courage, and empathy he didn't know he possessed. He felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. Humanity had been judged, and not for strength, not for weapons or wealth, but for character. And the result had been recognition, trust, and a place in a larger universe. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt that ordinary humans could truly matter on a cosmic scale. He realized that the simplest actions, helping others, acting honestly, showing patience, were more powerful than any technology or strategy. That was humanity's gift, and now the galaxy would see it. "Tomorrow," Lurie said, "will be a new beginning. Humanity will take its first steps among the stars, but tonight rest, reflect on what has been accomplished. You have done well." And he thought about the days now, the extraordinary responsibility, the partnership, the recognition. He understood that greatness was not only about heroism or invention, it was about consistent honesty, patience, and care. "Thank you," he said quietly to Lurie and perhaps to the universe itself. "You need not thank me," she said. "You did the work. I only observed and guided. The credit is yours, as it always should be." The night stretched on. The city outside was quiet, filled with the soft hum of life. Ethan sat beside Lurie, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. The Coalition's recognition had been earned not by weapons, intelligence, or dominance, but by the simple, enduring qualities that defined his species. Tomorrow, the galaxy would change. Humanity would take its first steps into a larger universe. And Ethan, once an ordinary man, had shown that even small, consistent acts of patience, compassion, and integrity could shape the fate of a species. He looked at Lurie, and she met his gaze, calm and steady. Together, they had achieved something extraordinary, not through force, not through fear, but through trust, cooperation, and the enduring strength of human character. And in that moment, Ethan understood the ultimate lesson. Humanity's true power was quiet, consistent, and profound. It was not about what humans could destroy, but what they could build, nurture, and protect. And for the first time, he believed fully that humanity could rise to any challenge the universe presented, not because of strength, but because of the choices it made, the bonds it honored, and the compassion it carried in its heart.